Welcome to the Love Me, Touch Me, Heal Me Summit, a one-of-a-kind event to expand your understanding of the mind, body, and spirit connection and the incredible healing potential of touch and body awareness. I'm your host, Dr. Erica Goodstone. For this special event, I have interviewed many of my esteemed colleagues, many teachers, and advanced practitioners in a wide variety of body therapy, somatic, and body-oriented psychotherapy methods. Please keep an open mind and allow yourself to discover new possibilities for healing. Today, I'm delighted to be speaking with David Phillips. So welcome.
Thank you.
And I met David in a core energetics workshop at the U.S. Association for Body Psychotherapy. You were assisting, and then in one of the exercises, which I shouldn't have done because I had a little coffee and a little bit of sugar right before the session. We had a break, and I leaned forward and the whole room was spinning. I got dizzy and fell down, and you stayed with me. And you even said something to me like, you don't have to be so dramatic to ask for some attention. It was adorable. And it made me feel really comforted. You stayed with me. So I know that you do really good work.
Thank you.
I had a little mini experience of it. So with that, I know that you do Reiki and you do core energetics. So I would love you to talk about your own healing journey that led you to study these modalities and anything else that you want to share. And then we'll talk about what those modalities are and how they work.
Awesome. So my journey really began when I ended a 16-year relationship. I talked to my yoga instructor and said, I think I need to do a spiritual retreat. And he kept giving me the name of a facilitator who I couldn't spell, and he kept forgetting to send me a link, so I was like at a loss. So I just started looking online for spiritual retreats. And I came across one in the Poconos that was on love and happiness. And so I went and I had an amazing experience, but while I was there, a gentleman told me I needed to go to Easton Mountain and do a retreat called Living Full Out. He said, it's going to change your life. So I was game. So I went, didn't really know what I was getting myself into. And the first time I went, I had just this amazing release from the body. I was kind of confused by it, but I thought there's more to this and I need more. So I went back 2 months later and did the exact same retreat again. And that time I said to one of the facilitators, I need to understand your training. He said, okay, but why do you want to know mine versus the other facilitator, John's? And I said, because there's something that you do. It's like you have a golden key that opens up something in the body that gives people access to something that they typically can't access. So that night at dinner, he began to explain to me about the Core Energetics Institute in New York City where he had studied. And that began the process. So he sent me to New York City, and I was a little concerned about how am I going to complete this certification program, because in my area there was no one practicing this modality, and there was a therapeutic requirement that I needed to meet. And the institute said, we'll make it work. And so I would go in early for therapy sessions before we would have training weekends, and the work really changed my life. It helped me to open up to new possibilities and to create things that I never actually thought imaginable. Before I started this particular work, I had kind of a distant relationship with my father. I had never really been authentic with my father. And I'm really excited. By the end of this year, I'll actually be going to Oklahoma to visit my father for the first time in over 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's very exciting. The changes just continue to manifest themselves for me as I help others. And as I help others, I continue to see myself change as well.
And so where did the Reiki come in to your process?
So the Reiki, actually, it's interesting. My ex was a Reiki practitioner and used to work on me. And I used to think it was nothing but bull. And I would let him work on me and think, oh, yes, just to satisfy him, I was saying this is great. But right before I was going to that first retreat in the Poconos, one of my best friends said to me, I really want you to let my sister work on you before you go, because it's going to help you be more open to the possibilities of what you may experience there. And I was somewhat resistant and said, you guys do all this stuff. I really don't get it. I don't really think I want to. And she persisted. And so I finally agreed just to let it get. I was like, okay, I'll just do it, right? And what made it even more challenging for me was her sister was going to work on me, and she was going to be in Arizona, and I was going to be in New York. All the more
even nearby. It wasn't
right.
It's on.
So all the more reason that I think, there's nothing to this. But we're on the phone, and Terry had said to me, I just want you to make sure that you're on the ground. So whether you're in your room in the lodge, whether you're outside on the ground, I just want you to be on the ground and make sure you feel safe. I said, okay. So she began to work on me, and she's trained in a number of modalities, including Reiki. And she got to my abdomen, and she said, there's something stuck there, and I can't get it to release. Can you give it permission to release? And I was like, sure. And all of a sudden, there was an energetic shock that went through my body, and I kind of yelled. And she went, wow, are you okay? That was big. And I'm like, yeah, I guess this is really real. And she said, what do you mean? Because she had no idea that I had a disbelief in any of this. I said, just finish what you're doing. We'll talk about that later. And so when I ended the first retreat, I actually did come back and did my initial Reiki training at the Chagrin Valley Wellness Center. And then I continued studying with Sister Ann at Ursuline College here in Cleveland.
So do you combine both methods, or do you do them separately? How do you work?
I really do provide a combination of methods to my clients. One size doesn't fit all is what I like to say. And so when somebody comes in, oftentimes when you think about working with the body, they really need to be grounded before you can take them sometimes to really deep places. So oftentimes I may use Reiki as a first step into the process so they can just begin to feel comfortable with me, comfortable with getting their energy balanced and having them even feel something different in their body. So, and sometimes I just use Reiki at the end of a core energetic session. So if somebody's had a very deep place that they've gone to, that will help to ground them in the end of the session and make them feel more balanced going back out into the real world.
Yeah, I have taken a few Reiki trainings, beginning and intermediate, and then I took it again. And in one of these events, during, I guess it was a meditation period, I did one of the symbols, and I actually saw it as a three-dimensional.
Yes.
And that was the first time I realized, wow, this energy really is moving in a coiled fortune.
Yes. It's really amazing once you begin to embrace it and open up to it. It's funny how some of my clients, they get a little weirded out, right? Because they're like, I'm a very religious person, and how does this impact my spiritual beliefs? And it's always interesting when I say one of my teachers is a nun. They're like, really? I'm like, yeah, she's great. So it's always interesting to see what people bring to the situation. But I think that's one of the great things about, even within core energetics, one of the components that differentiates core energetics versus bioenergetics is the spirituality component. And I allow clients to bring spirituality in at their definition. So for some people, that's going to be, they come from a Jewish tradition. Others come from Buddhism. So wherever the client's at, I meet them on their spiritual path and let them bring in their own traditions. Because I think spirituality helps to complete the process. Oftentimes we leave that out, and I think it's a really important component.
And what do you mean by spirituality?
Well, oftentimes, we have a connection to a higher power, usually for most of us. And so bringing that in and helping that to support change is often very important. Now, I recall one time I was in a session with someone, and I was at the end of the session just helping her to balance because she'd gone through some major anger release with one of her siblings in the session. And so we were just doing some balance work on the table, and I said to her, breathe in white light from the heavens and just fill yourself with white light. never mentioned anything about a specific god or any deity. And the next thing I know, she's actually laying there crying and saying, "Thank you, Jesus." So she brought that in to support her in her process of healing. So I really try to open up for people to make room for wherever they feel that they need to go.
Beautiful. So are you aware of any published research about this method, about both of them, or either one?
Yeah, so with core energetics, it was developed by John Parakis, and it was initially bioenergetics. So Parakis and Alexander Lowen developed the work. There are several books that they've published, but Parakis really found it important to add the spirituality component. And so there is information published on the spirituality component, which is called the Pathworks. And so there are a number of different books that Lowen and Parakis published. One is called Core Energetics. One is called Bioenergetics. One's the Depression and the Body. One's the Language of the Body. So there are multiple books out there that you can read about the modalities. And then in Reiki, it continues to evolve. There's many variations and traditions of Reiki. And what's really cool for me is it's being much more adopted into our traditional medical system. So I live in Cleveland, Ohio, and our two largest hospital systems are the Cleveland Clinic as well as university hospitals. Both of them have now integrative medicine, and they have Reiki practitioners who are actually going into recovery rooms when people come out of surgeries and things like that, helping them to create more balance. And I remember one time when my mom was having surgery, the Reiki practitioner was in the bed next door, and they were trying to take a tube out of someone's neck. And so he got kind of stuck there longer than what he was going to do. He was trying to get over to my mom, and then I think he kind of realized I was already over there doing the Reiki. So we had a conversation later and goes, "Were you actually doing it?" I was like, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, I'm sorry I couldn't get there." I'm like, everything was covered. So it's really great to see it being adopted more into Western medicine as well.
It's wonderful. So can you share an example of a client working with core energetics?
Sure. One of my first clients, I always like to tell this story. It was a gentleman that came to me. He'd been through a lot of different therapeutic models, most of which have been completely dialogue-based. And he was dealing with a lot of trauma from sexual abuse as a child. And so he had a difficult time making authentic connections with other people. And so I remember one of the first times we tried to do a body movement, and I just said to him, "Can you put your hands on top of mine?" And he attempted to move towards me and immediately just burst into tears. And so it took us 6 months to get to a point where he could actually place his hands on top of mine. But it was just moving very slowly, making sure that he felt safe. And he'd never gotten to that point before because he couldn't really create the connections. And so that transformed in his own life till when he started dating people, he was actually able to connect with them in a different way and be present with them instead of living in fear with them, because he was always afraid somehow he was going to get hurt.
And do you have any other examples that you want to share?
Sure. There's so many.
I guess just one more.
Okay. Another story that I like to share is there's a client that I had that oftentimes when she was a child, she would be left in the crib alone, or she'd be left in a room by herself to play, but she didn't have a lot of connection. And so when she would get upset or when she needed something, oftentimes she was just left to her own to try and figure things out from an early age. So oftentimes, again, she has difficulty creating connections. And so one of the things that I do with her sometimes is I put a large body pillow in my lap, and I end up just letting her feel nourished. So by holding her like you would like a child. So here I am, holding a 60-year-old woman who never got the love and connection. And she can then access different emotions, and she can gain insights about really what's going on in her life because she's feeling nurtured and connected in a way that she never gets.
It's amazing how many people don't get that connection.
Right. And it's so important.
So the work is good. So what is the training? What is required to learn this work?
So Core Energetics has a 4-year certification program. I attended the institute based out of New York City. And so we do long residential weekends. We actually hold the residential weekends in Connecticut. And then in addition to that, you have a therapy requirement while you're in the program. So you're really doing your own personal work throughout the process as well as learning to help others. So you really go through a personal evolution while learning skills and techniques to help other people. There's also a 5th-year program, which is kind of the postgraduate degree for Core Energetics. And I'm actually excited. I'm starting that this year.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, and you pointed out something really important about the body-oriented psychotherapy and somatic work that so many of us do, that we need to do our own work.
Yes.
You need to be centered and clear in order to work with another person and not put your agenda on them.
I think that's one of the things that I like the most about this. I even utilize a technique from Eden Energy Medicine oftentimes in the beginning of a session where there's a process that they call the Wayne Cook method in Eden Energy Medicine. It's very much about grounding. And so if a client comes in and I can just tell their energy spinning, I really want to start the session from a grounded place. So I oftentimes will actually go through that process with them in the beginning. And the great thing about it is I get to do it with them too, so it helps to ground me so I'm more present for them as well.
And you just reminded me, people have said to me, don't you get tired? Don't you feel, worn out from working with people? And no, when you do this energy work, any kind, the somatic work, you feel better.
Yeah, well, it's always interesting. Some people say to me, like on a Reiki session, oftentimes, I'm standing in long positions for a period of time and that kind of stuff. And they're like, it has to wear you out. And I actually feel much more relaxed after giving a treatment than when I start, because there's a way that actually working with the energy helps to bring me down into a more grounded place as well.
Right, and it's a reminder that if you don't feel better, something's going on.
Absolutely.
You, and maybe something with the other person too, but that's a sign, because
absolutely,
the work really helps us to get in touch with the energy and feel good.
Absolutely.
So can you share a few tips or suggestions for our viewers about how they might work with their own self and also how to find a qualified practitioner?
Sure. One of the things that I typically share with my clients that's an easy thing for them to do, you can actually go out to YouTube and find it, is to do what in Eden Energy Medicine is referred to as the 5-minute energy routine. So it's something that you can go on. There's a video that Donna Eden will guide you through the process, but it really helps you to ground your energy, to protect yourself. There's one process called the zip up, which helps you to protect your aura whenever you feel like you're getting invaded from other people's energy. So it's something that you can do easily for yourself every day, and it just helps to build up a grounded self. When you talk about finding a practitioner, though, I really feel that the most important thing is to find somebody that you feel like you can have a relationship with. Because oftentimes in the therapeutic models that we're doing, it's really important that you feel comfortable to really become vulnerable with this person and that you can trust them. So sometimes you actually have to shop around, right? So you might have an appointment with somebody and you're like, oh, well, I paid for this, but I really hate to go find somebody else. But you might need to, because you need to find somebody that you really feel comfortable with, that you can meet your goals with.
Very important. Thank you.
Absolutely.
David, tell us about your services and how people can get in touch with you.
Sure. So I work in a number of different ways. I work with individual clients, I work with couples, as well as with groups. I also do work in retreat environments. So my next retreat will be at Easton Mountain in April of next year. That's going to be a 4-day retreat utilizing the methods of Core Energetics. And then I also do work in corporations in the Cleveland area, oftentimes dealing with difficult topics such as racism, LGBT, cultural competency, things of that nature. So going into organizations where the conversations are pretty emotionally charged already. And so having the skill set behind me of knowing how the emotions impact us really helps to carry those conversations in a different way. If you want more information about my practice, I'm online at energeticawakenings.com, and I'm located in Cleveland, Ohio.
David, thank you so much for participating in the summit. And I love that you're working with corporations and bringing it out to mainstream.
Yeah, it's important.
Yes.
It's interesting, Erica, because I used to work for the Chamber of Commerce for many years in Cleveland, and I really thought there's no way that I'll ever be able to incorporate this work into that world. And I'm so happy that they've proven me wrong. That there are different organizations out there that are really welcoming and opening to this idea of how do we deal with emotions in a different way, and it really promotes a different work environment, a much healthier work environment.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for participating in the summit.
My pleasure, Erica. Thanks for asking me.
And to those of you listening, I look forward to speaking to you again soon.